Can I just have, I realised in my presentation, I haven't really got anything about Ella's Kitchen. Can I just have a show of hands who knows what we do and who we are? So, brilliant, cool. Most people. So we're a baby food company. We had our 12-year birthday yesterday. We were set up by Paul Lindy 12 years ago. We've always had ethics very much at our hearts. We've been a purpose-driven business and a values-led business from the start. We're very proud that we certified as a B Corporation 2 years ago, only the second company to do that whilst part of a PLC after Ben & Jerry's. So I'm going to talk to you about four things, really just two stories I'm going to talk to you about. And I realise I've made a bit of a mistake here, but Jim's made one mistake, or actually two mistakes. So I made one here at the end. So I'm going to talk a little bit about me. I'd make a great millennial. I like talking about myself quite a lot. I'm going to talk about change is happening. You can see all of us here, we're all connected. We all want to do the same thing, so change is happening in this room. I'm going to talk who's this about, and the mistake here is what can we do. So I've got four passions in my life. It was five, but Arsenal have started selling all their best players, so they've dropped off the list. So the first one is my wife. We just had our 10-year wedding anniversary. Thank you. I like this picture, not because she looks beautiful, because she always looks beautiful, but because I didn't have grey hair. My two kids, Mimi and Orla, they're now 8 and 6. They're a lot of fun. They're very, very challenging at the same time. I could talk about them for a long time, but I'm going to run out of time. Ella's Kitchen. I've been at Ella's Kitchen 6.5 years. It's the best company I've ever worked at. It will be the best company that I've ever worked at. It's a huge, huge passion of mine. It's an incredible company. It's changed my life. The guys do absolutely incredible work, and it's brilliant because they make me look good. I just sit there doing nothing, really. And the fourth thing that's a passion of mine is this idea of people using business as a force for good. And this is all tied up with ethics and everything that we're talking about today. And Ella's does this. It's done this from the start. We've always had a mission. It's not just about making money. And this is what I'm passionate about. And the thing that changed my life, I heard about just before I joined Ella's Kitchen. And that and meeting Paul was one of the reasons, or the reasons why I decided to join Ella's Kitchen. And it's a story that relates to 1999. Prince is probably another one of my passions, but anyway, we'll move on from him. And it relates to the UNHCR, which is their High Commission for Refugees, and it's a true story. And they are responsible for looking after refugees. And if you imagine in war-torn areas, they always were completely overwhelmed. Imagine if you're fleeing conflict, one of the first problems you face is food safety and security. Closely after that is a loss of identity. So if I drop you somewhere on the planet and you say, my name is Jim, is it? That loss of identity is a really, really powerful thing. And in 1999 in Bosnia, 650,000 people left Bosnia over rocky terrain over a long weekend. So they had this problem of loss of identity and also getting displaced from their families. So those of us who have got kids, imagine you get displaced from your kids. How long before you see them again? A month, 6 months, ever? You lose your parents. You're put into a camp with over 1 million people. So this is a quick humanitarian catastrophe. And there's a true story of 3 French Microsoft technicians having lunch in Paris, and one turned to the other 2 and said, have you heard about this story in Le Monde? Yeah, it's awful. They went, yeah, it's terrible, terrible. And he said, well, they need a program, right, that can give the migrants an instant passport and the UN the ability to track people so they can match families up together. And the other 2 were like, yeah. And he said, well, we're pretty good at this, aren't we? So they went to their boss, who went to their boss, who went to the Microsoft board, and they said, crack on, have a go. They sent 40 French technicians out to Bosnia. Within 3 months, they'd solved a problem that had been there forever. 3 months. And if you think about the technical brilliance, the creativity, the know-how that we've got in our companies, if we can turn these to society's benefit, which is ethics, imagine what we could do. You know, at Ella's Kitchen, we lead the world in terms of nutrition, children's nutrition. The government shouldn't be able to do this. We should be doing this. And that's my passion. So change is happening. We've talked about it. It's in this room at the moment. We see it everywhere. And I think ethics and purpose is evolving and has evolved from a nice to have to a must have to a standalone CSR initiative. You know, it's not in the big strategy of a business, to a company culture, to words on a wall. We've all seen the words on the wall. Volkswagen had, they had great values. FIFA, their top value was integrity. Arthur Andersen, it was integrity. Brilliant. We can all put them on the walls, but are we actually delivering action through them? And from small things to making a meaningful difference. Who is this about? This is about people. It's about planets. It's about us. I saw someone talk the other day. He was a brilliant South American guy, and he was saying, I hate it when people say, do this for the kids, do this for my children. He's like, no, do it for now. We need to do this now. We need to do this for us. We need to be selfish. And I met a CEO the other day, and I was talking to him about ethics and joining B Corp, and he's like, yeah, why do we need to do this? We're a great company. And I said, stop being so selfish. It's not about you. It's about leadership. And if there's one thing, we're all connected because we care. And I would say we need to lead. We need to lead in Reading and do more in Reading. And I met this guy in Toronto. He's called Paul. He works for a company called Rhino Foods. Rhino Foods introduced a really, really simple initiative. And they introduced it simply because they gave a shit about the people that work for them, right? And the initiative they introduced was called a $1,000 initiative. And they introduced it because they've realized that in life, stuff happens. And if you work on the factory floor, your car breaks down, you can't afford to fix your car, you lose your job. Your kid falls over, breaks their arm, you can't afford to pay for the private medical insurance. So they introduced this $1,000 initiative, whereby at the end of the day, you go to the bursar and you could say, I'd like to draw down $1,000. The next morning from the local bank, you could have a check or you'd have cash. Nobody'd ask any questions. Then over the next 2 months, that $1,000 would get taken out incrementally out of your salary until it was paid back. And he said to me, I had to draw down on this 7 times. Now, for me, it was a lifesaver. He said, but it's not important what the reasons were, because you may not think it's that important. But to me, it was really, really important. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. He said, yeah, but it doesn't end there. And he got his phone out. I was quite emotional. And he said, here's a picture of my daughter and her 3 kids. Now, his daughter lost her husband in the war in Afghanistan. And he said, the bank would never have lent me money to get a mortgage. I didn't have a house, my daughter didn't have a house, and her 3 kids didn't have a house. He said, but unbeknown to me, because I was borrowing money from the bank and it was getting paid back through my salary on time, in full, I built up a credit history. He then showed me a picture and said, here's the house that I've been able to buy. And it was only because his company cared in the first place. His company was thinking about, what can we do for him? And there are his kids playing on his lawn. It's amazing. He's like, it's changed my life, changed her life, it's changed their life forever. So for me, it's a really good story about companies caring. So what can you do? Here's my 8-year-old. She was 6 at the time. Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. I would say that we should all lead this initiative. So